Just like to keep the banter going for a second here. Oh, there's okay, we're live, and I know there are people waiting because somebody put an early comment.
Speak up, guys. Say hello. Let us know that you're here.
Usually I do this around noon hour Eastern, and today it's a little bit later, obviously, because of the time zone difference. But no, people are starting to file in. Here we go. Okay, let me play the intro, and then we'll kick things off.
Cool.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Awesome. And today, of course, we've got Jaryd Krause from Buying Online Businesses joining us live from Australia. How are you doing today, Jaryd?
I'm great. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this a little bit before I hit the live button. This is actually your fourth appearance on the show.
Yeah.
And I updated the show notes in YouTube already for anyone who wants to go back and see Jaryd's prior appearances. But the first time you came on was 2019. And I think we just talked about online businesses in general. And then in 2021, you came back again. We had another conversation, but it was with respect to how the whole pandemic situation had affected the market. And then in October of 21, you came back where we tackled the question, are online businesses a form of passive income or not? And you also came and you were a guest twice in my Business Buyer Adventure group coaching program. So you've had a lot of interaction, you and I. And the reason I keep inviting you back is because I think that you're a good guest and you have good information. So
Thank you.
in the interest of being transparent, that's why I keep having you back. But
You've
for
also
those
been
of
on
you who
mine.
don't,
You've also been on mine a couple of times as well, my podcast. And we've done a YouTube, was it live? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was live. We did a live on my YouTube channel around how to finance a business as well.
yes, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, for those of you who don't know you, you want to give a quick recap on who Jaryd is and how you've become, such an expert on the world of buying online businesses?
Sure. Who's Jaryd? I'm just a guy from Australia. I love surfing, and I wanted to get into the online world of making money online. And I tried to start a bunch of businesses, and I just sucked at it, and realized 90% of starts fail. So I moved into trying to see if I could buy an online business, a small one. Started quite small, bought my first one for $15,000, and then bought consecutively after that a fair few of them. And then people wanted to know more. I built out a course. I built out a company now with a bunch of employees and people where we help people find, buy, and grow businesses. And I think I've just been lucky and I'm very grateful that I know a lot, because we see so many deals through the business come through where we review people's due diligences and point out risks and opportunities and things like that before they even make an offer. So that's what has helped us learn so much about the space and get really, really good at this, just looking at so many pieces of data, so many businesses.
Yeah. Well, people have been waiting for you to come on today because look, Ken here says he's been looking forward to this episode.
Thanks,
And
Ken.
Kevin's joining us from Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Kevin, how are you today? And more questions are starting to pile up here, which we'll get to as we move along.
Awesome.
But one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit is that, you know, in the real world, the brick and mortar world, if you had a business that only produced, $10 or $20,000 a year of profit, most people, would not ever consider buying that kind of business. They would describe it as a hobby or a job. But in the world of online businesses, there's an active market for these kinds of things because, of course, people want to buy them because they think they can run them while they keep their employment, for example. And so do you want to get a little bit into sort of the different tiers of the market and how it could be a little bit different than what we see in the world of brick and mortar stuff?
Definitely. So my philosophy and what our business is wrapped around is helping people replace their income so they don't have to work in the job that they're continually working, in the hopes, well, not the hopes, but for the goal of them having more time to spend doing what they love with the people they love, like their friends and their family. And so typically people will want to buy lower tier businesses, but it usually is a lot more work and a lot more strenuous. And we're about less stress, more fun, and
Hmm.
setting ourselves up for success. So typically, and it used to be $10,000. Now it's around the $20,000 range, $15,000 range. You can still buy businesses under that price range, but I find if it's under the 15 grand, usually, then you're buying a startup. And like I said before, 90%
Right.
of startups fail. And you typically have to put a lot more effort and resources, time and your money into that business to get it out of that sort of failure range and it be more passive. And when you have a job, a full-time job, and a partner and children, that's pretty strenuous. As you start to grow, as you start to build up a bit more capital, buying something 20K or north of 20K, then you have a little bit more play and a little bit more wiggle room with resources the business is making. And typically, the larger, and this is very general, the larger the business, typically the less risk and the less
Hmm.
need to put into it to maintain it because it's a lot more solid, or less work it is actually required for it. So a lot of people start between the 20 to the $60,000 price range. That's where a lot of people want to kind of dip their toe in the water. What I like to see is people buying larger businesses if they can afford to. Obviously, everybody's in a different financial position. I had to start very small, way like a long time ago, $15,000 for my first asset. And then I like to see people start to work towards buying larger assets or growing the ones they have built, sell them off and buy a larger asset if it's worth selling. Maybe sometimes it's worth keeping. And then you can move into the 100 to 200K range and then the 200 to 500K range. Typically with the 200
Okay.
to 500K range, you've got a business that's far more passive and you can hire experts to basically do most of the work for the business and still have passive income. Have it, you know, semi-passive.
So
You still have to maintain working with those people, but yeah.
so that business that would have a purchase price of $60,000, what kind of cash flow would it be generating? I want to get an idea sort of the valuation for these things.
Yeah, and this is cool that we're talking about this because it is changing with the current market, right? Typically, and there's different business models. So we should talk about those because that'll determine the multiples.
Okay.
A SaaS and membership business, software as a service or membership business, typically they're going to go for a higher multiple because they've already got people already locked in paying an annual fee or a monthly fee to get access to that tool or whatever that service is or that membership. And those multiples can be and we do multiples in months for online businesses, not years. So those multiples can be around the 45, 50 range up to 60, 70 months.
Wow.
Yes.
Like if you convert that into years, you're talking about sort of double the typical valuations of small brick and mortar businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly. They're very valuable business to own, especially if those SaaS businesses are very sticky and businesses are using them and their whole team knows how to use it. To change the tool would be very costly for the business. So it's got that
Right.
sticky element, right? And typically those businesses with a long or a large customer lifetime value or a really good churn rate are going to go for a higher multiple, right? It's like any business, the less risk, the higher it's going to go for. So
Hmm.
typically there's those ones. Then you have e-commerce businesses. E-commerce businesses now are roughly around similar, I would suggest, probably to brick and mortar offline businesses where you're going for around the 2 years, maybe a little bit more, right? 2.5 to 3 years.
I,
And then
I've talked with some people doing and who have recently completed some e-commerce business sales, and they're pretty much matching the data from old mail order catalog business from the 1990s. Like the data from those old mail order catalog businesses is pretty much the same thing, which and it is essentially the same business. You're you're, instead of using a catalog, you're going on a website, but you're ordering an object that gets delivered through the post, and it's basically the same business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smart. And then you have blogs, which are content websites, and they typically were going for around the 35 to 45, sometimes up to 55-ish range, monthly multiple, and that's come down a little bit. So to give you an answer of 60,000, say it's
So
60,000.
hang on, Jaryd, those blogs, would they typically be earning money through like Amazon affiliate links? Is that typically how they would make money, or
Yeah,
ads? How
so
would they do that?
yeah, a combination of both. You can have one that's just 100% ad revenue from having ads on the site, or 100% affiliate revenue from having affiliate links on the site, or a combination of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I would imagine that market is susceptible to Amazon changing its policies.
And it has happened. It happened about 3 years ago, where they changed their commission structure from 8% down to 3.5% for some niches and industries. So there is single source dependency risk that you need to understand. I had a client that had that happen to him, and we got his revenue back to the same income via using multiple affiliates and decreasing risk. So it was a blessing in disguise, but it was work. So and then you also have, most of those sites have single source dependency on one traffic source, which is Google. And a lot of people in this price range, sub $60,000 for blogs, the price of the blog, are typically playing a game against Google, trying to gain traffic, versus those sites that are a lot larger. They understand Google is their business partner, and they're working with Google to do what Google says in terms of SEO, like white hat good SEO,
Right.
to work with Google, help Google win, which also helps their business win with traffic. So there is that single source dependency, and it's, I think Google traffic is the best form of traffic on the internet in itself. And the reason being is because the intent is so high. When people go to Facebook and Instagram, what are they on Facebook and Instagram for? To see videos and photos of friends and family, and kill some time, right? Not sort of zone out. But people go on Google, what for? To find an answer. They're hungry for the answer. Or YouTube, they're hungry for the answer. And so people actually want to find what you're putting out there. And that traffic is so much richer and closer to the purchasing the product in their buyer's journey. So that's why I believe it's
It's
a source.
you know what you've just reminded me of, and we'll get back to that cash flow. I keep distracting you, sorry, but
Yeah, that's fine.
what you just reminded me is my old sales pitch when I used to work in Yellow Pages, because I would say to people, when you advertise in the newspaper or on the radio, people are there for a different purpose, but people only grab the Yellow Pages when they want to read advertisements because they really need to buy something.
Yeah.
And that's what made that medium different than any other. But
Yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you. $60,000 business, what kind of cash flow? You were going to give out a range, or
Yeah,
some
I would
ideas.
say for a blog at the moment, around a 35 multiple. So if you go 60,000 divided by 35, I'll just do, it's about $1,700 in passive. Well, it'd be semi-passive. You'd still want to have a couple of writers that you can hire, or you can hire an agency to do the writing of blogs and SEO for you. That's what I choose to do. On the larger businesses, you can afford to hire an agency, and they're a lot better at their work than hiring somebody and trying to manage them yourself. So it's pretty decent for 60 grand. You can make, $1,700 a month.
Okay. And so it almost kind of reminds me of, if you were to buy like a rental building, maybe you got an apartment rent for a similar amount, but it's just the tangibility, or the uh, of what it is you're buying, obviously is highly different. I mean, there's all kinds of other risks in the world of online businesses,
Yeah.
and we've talked before in other episodes about these multiples. And so how is it changing right now in 2023?
Yeah, such a good question. Well, we all know it's very different in Australia, the economy. We have a pretty solid economy. But over in America, which is like usually the guiding force of how the overall economy of the world is sort of shaped. And that's a very general statement, because we have economies within economies, and also those within America, small little economies. But speaking very general terms, the economy in America hasn't been great, and we have seen retail slow down hugely, right? Which means ad revenues have dropped. They're being hit quite hard, especially in e-commerce businesses. Retail's been hit hard for e-commerce businesses, and that means multiples have dropped. So, and across the board on a lot of businesses. Also, with that, then you also have the pressure of people, mm, interest rates rising, and people having maybe assets, or their assets start to turn into liabilities, like properties or whatever it is, or
Mm.
especially their cars and stuff. Like, their interest rates are going up and they need to sell off stuff, and that's why multiples of these online businesses, I've noticed, have slowly started to decrease throughout this year of 2023. For instance, yesterday I had a call with a buyer looking at a business, and it was around the $80,000 range business. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, okay, how come this hasn't sold? In my head, I went through all of the data. I didn't know the price, and I didn't know the range or the multiple that they were asking for. And I thought, this is definitely a 45 multiple, because I know this time last year, that's what that business would have sold for. That business was on a Dutch auction, going for a 31.5 multiple. And I thought, this business is going to sell. It should have sold already, but it hasn't. And it could be multiple factors. But I think two things there is that because the business is good, it's been scaling, it's growing, the traffic, like, I would buy the business myself personally if it was a bit larger an asset. But for that price range and for how well the business looked, it would have, like I said, it would have sold for more. And I was wondering why it hadn't sold. And I think it's due to the seller is willing to accept less money because they have other things going on in their life, interest rates are rising and whatnot, and they need some cash. Also, the rest of the market,
Oh, you mean otherwise they would have pulled it or set a reserve,
yeah, yeah,
perhaps?
yeah, correct. Or they
Yeah.
just would have kept it on the marketplace and said, "I'm not going to decrease my multiple." And you got the other picture is the buyers are like slower to hand over their cash because they are worried, or they want to keep some cash for in case, or maybe they don't have cash and they're spending a lot more money on their interest repayments. So yeah, people are willing to sell their business to less, and less people are willing to spend cash at the moment, and invest. And obviously, we see that the best gains are typically made in these periods where, there's blood in the streets. What Warren Buffett says is right.
Well,
Um,
it's interesting what you're saying. I actually had an email that came out recently, and for anyone watching who's not on the list, go to davidcbarnettlist.com to sign up. But I put out an email where I talked about how the market for online businesses is uniquely global because really the buyer could be anywhere on earth, right? And
mm,
so what you're describing is that because maybe the economy in the United States has kind of had a bit of a downturn, there aren't as and property prices have softened and maybe people who felt wealthier because they had a bunch of crypto assets that have now gone down in price, for example, people are not feeling like they want to make the investments at these price. And because of the softness, as you say in the States, it's kind of affected the market globally for these assets that
yeah,
and everyone once they see that things are starting to decline, then everyone's like, well, if I'm going to buy, maybe I should wait and maybe they'll decline even more. It almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing.
yeah, yeah, spot on. And the market in the online business space is made up of about, I would say this is very rough figures, about 80% of the market are US based buyers and
Hmm.
sellers. So it is a large portion, which does rub off on the rest of the world as well. And yeah, you do have those people who are like, oh, I'm going to wait until the price is a bit lower. But that's like trying to time the market in anything. And I'm a big believer is like, if you can afford to buy now, buy now. And I call that early. I call that early in the year this year, and also end of last year. I thought, look, it's going to be a good year to buy assets across the board. If you're to buy, I'm not big into crypto. But if you to buy crypto or an ETF property, I'm buying property this year, physical property. It's just a good time to buy because interest rates are going up, less people can afford to buy. And what happens then is the price of the assets decrease a little bit depending on the area. And that's the same with businesses. Businesses runs very similar, and I find parallel to
Yeah.
property. And what happens when interest rates, eventually they're going to have to decrease, right? Eventually, when interest rates decrease, then more people can afford to get financing. And when more people can afford to get financing, more assets get bought, either properties or businesses. And that's when the price of those multiples and those properties go up, simply because interest rates have gone down and the value has gone up because more people can afford it. And as more people can afford it, more people are prepared to pay more than somebody else, which drives up the multiples and the price of these assets. So just by buying it in a tough time and securing that asset for a cheaper deal is a good position to be in.
So let me ask you this: in the regular sort of pricing of business, the bigger the businesses get, the higher the multiples go, as the businesses seem to have less and less of a risk profile. In the world of these small online businesses, you talked about the multiples. You gave an example of a business that would have a $60,000 selling price. What about a business that produced a cash flow of 100,000 a year? Now, that would be about well, let's say it's 10,000 a month, or would that
Yeah.
be selling for 420,000, or would the multiple be even bigger for a business that size?
No. Look, the multiple for a business stays the same, similar, very general, all the way up to like the millions of acquisition
Okay.
price. But what makes the multiple different is the level of risk that's involved with the business. For example, you could have a blog that makes so an $60,000 blog that says makes $1,500 to $1,700 a month. It might go for a 35 monthly multiple. But if you bought a business that was 100 grand a year, 10K a month, that could go for a 35 multiple as well, being about 350K. And the $60,000 business, it might have less risk in terms of good spread between traffic and revenue streams and things like that. And it might go for like a 1 or 2 monthly multiple higher than the 350K business. So they stay similar, but it depends on the risk within the asset as well. So they stay similar in that business model class, but it's the multiple changes dependent on that specific asset or specific business and its risk.
And when you talk about diversity, you're talking about, does the traffic all come from one place, or is the traffic
Yeah,
coming from multiple sources, platforms, etc.? Right.
correct. Yeah, and
Yeah.
what's the value of that traffic, right? Like Pinterest traffic is very different to Google traffic, just like Facebook and Instagram is different that we talked about previously. Yeah,
Okay. We've got a couple of great questions here from people in the audience. Want to tackle some of these? I got
I love questions.
concise advice wants to know, what effect has GPT and DAL-E have on online businesses? This would be artificial intelligence stuff.
Yeah. Look, this is a can of worms, and we could do a whole stream on this. I think AI is great. It's really good, and it's a really good tool. A lot of people believe it's the answer and believe that nobody's ever going to have a job anymore, and that may be the case in a long, in way down the track. However, a lot of in online businesses, people are like, well, I'm just going to get all of my content created by AI, and I'm going to have it non-plagiarized. I'm going to have it detected, like not detected by the AI tools. But Google's AI tool is so damn good. I think it's irresponsible of us as business owners to lean into AI in a way that it is going to be the answer and just leave it to AI and to be like, AI is going to create all my content and they're going to do all the work. I think we need to take some level of responsibility in our businesses and make sure that we fact check things, make sure that we are making our product, our services, and our content amazing for our users. I think it's irresponsible of us not to do that. And I think a lot of people are trying to go down the route of like, we're just going to just make it cheap and easy, quick and fast. And that's, most people look for the shortcut, and they're the people that lose.
So are you saying that Google looks for AI created content and kind of down scores it a little bit in its algorithm?
Well, they say they're not going to. I'm not an SEO, right? Search engine optimizationist, but I know a lot of SEOs and I speak to a lot of SEOs, and they say they're not going to downgrade AI driven content. But think about it this way. Like, I think you should use AI. I think you should use AI as ideas, right? As use it for writer's block of like talking points to create a piece of content for your audience, so you don't have writer's block. And then a professional in that space should, and you could use it. AI could write the content for you as well on those talking points. And then I think it should be rewritten and revised and edited heavily by somebody that is an authority in that space. For example, if Google ranks content based that's best for the user. So if you need to put yourself in Google shoes, you need to put yourself in your own shoes as well. And I think if people understand this thing that I'm going to mention now, is that if you have somebody that's going to write the 10 best ways to catch a fish, and they've got a blog and they just outsource the whole thing to AI, and they get it done by Chat GPT, Dolly, and all that. They get the images and stuff like that created, and then it gets put through Quillbot, rephrased, and put through AI detector, so the AI detector doesn't know, apparently, that it's AI driven, and it gets published. And then you got a person who has been a fisher person for 10 years, 15 years, and then they use Chat GPT and they get some talking points. They get it written by Chat GPT. They edit it, they rewrite it, revise it themselves, and then they publish it on their website by somebody that's been in the industry for 10, 15 years or more. Which piece of content would you prefer to read? The one that's all AI, or the one that's by a fisher person that has that unique experience with all the idiosyncrasies that have learned through their career that they've put into their article? Which, as a user, which one would you prefer to read?
Well, it's funny that you're talking about this, because back in early March, for my email list that I mentioned earlier, what I did is I queried ChatGPT a couple of times about questions related to buying a business, and it gave me these very formulaic type, very plain vanilla sort of passages. And then I put them in my email and I said, now here are the things it didn't mention that will kill you, and like in a deal. And I've noticed this in other people's marketing too, is a lot of people are making a lot of content out of what ChatGPT misses, or what, important facts that don't get caught. And I saw a lawyer doing it the other day too. And so I know what you're saying, because the and here was the big question I had to ask at the end of one of my emails was that, I mean, these artificial intelligence bots are being trained by reading the internet. And so there's a lot of really terrible, low quality composition, clickbait type stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
So now that content is now part of artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah. It's
I
a
mean,
great point. I mean,
so
it's a feedback wheel of,
yeah.
like, how many blog posts are out there on the internet that just absolutely suck and shouldn't be there, and Google hasn't deranked them yet. And it's like, it starts to become this feedback wheel of the blind leading the blind. And eventually, are we just going to become dumber and dumber by having everything repurposed and regurgitated to us from content that has been written by somebody that doesn't know about that particular space? And we just become worse and worse at our craft. Like, if you look at buildings, of course, it's happened for us already, right? Buildings back centuries and centuries and centuries ago, way, way stronger, way better built than they are today. So it's a unfortunate thing for us to happen. But you raise a really good point, and I'm not saying that I'm against AI. I think it's helpful and it will get better. But at the moment, I think a lot of people are just so damn distracted by it and are consumed and aren't thinking about the real things they need to think about in their business. Is like, how do I create the best product? How do I create the best content? Not how can I do it cheap and still, look at profit margin? Because
I agree. I agree.
profit margin. You usually make the best profit margin when you have the best products, not when you try to do it on the cheap.
I agree. Question here from Ken says, Jaryd, what are the new niche areas apart from affiliate in current online markets with not a huge substantial investment? So Ken wants to know where he can invest a little bit of money and make a big return. I get this question all the time, but we're gonna pose that one to you this time.
In terms of niches, I'm not sure. Obviously, I need a little bit more context on that, Ken, but I'll try my best to answer. But if you can put a little bit more context and be a bit more specific with your question, your follow-up question, while I try and answer, that'd be great. New niche areas. Look, new for me typically is what I would call non-evergreen and probably fad, like a fad things like new, like a fidget spinner or a new,
Hmm.
onesie business. I don't think they're the best business niches to go for because it's going to be a fad. And I think if you're going to be in business, you should be in a great long-term evergreen business. And I don't think it needs to be new as well. Like I'm not a believer in like trying to find something new or a new idea, or all you need is $1 million idea and you'll be fine. It's like, that's not really the case. What's the case is that if you find a product that's already really good, but it has and if your goal is to like start a business or to buy a business, if you find a business or a product that's great, and you see, because you're in the space, you see that there's some things that could be better about it, which would make it a knockout product that people couldn't buy, like they couldn't not buy. I mean, then you could reiterate it and reinvent it and re-improve it and make it far better. And that's without having to think of a new idea or a new niche or a new product. And I think that's the best way to grow a business, is to lean into and ask your customers, what problems do you have that we're not yet solving, that we don't yet know about, and how do we reiterate and re-improve and reinvent our product to make it better for you. And that's what I do, is I ask people what do they need. So I don't think it's best to look for the shiny new thing. I think it's best to just find a business that's great and make it far better by doing that.
Yeah, combing through and finding out what the unanswered questions are with respect to the content base
Mm,
of whatever
mm,
the online property is. I've been making YouTube videos for years, all on the topics of buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses.
yeah.
And when I go into the back end of YouTube where I can see statistics and everything, it blows me away how many videos from 5 years ago were watched last week, right? And
Yeah.
it's because the video was about a specific question or topic, and someone today is still typing that question in to either Google or YouTube, and that video from 5 years ago is the best answer, and so it,
Mm,
it
yeah.
continues to come up. And
Yeah.
so in any kind of content marketing space, no matter what it is you're trying to promote or sell on a blog or e-commerce website, I think the biggest thing is understand the language that your customers are speaking. How do they express their need or their desire, and then figure out how you can take that exact language and use it in some content, so that, to your point about Google being your ally, so that when somebody looks for that specific thing, that you actually have the best bit of information to go up at the top of the list.
Yeah, spot on. I got a perfect example of this. I had somebody buy an e-commerce business with me many years ago, and I said to him, and he wanted to grow the business. I said to him, "What are we going to do to grow the business? What are your ideas?" And his ideas were like, "Oh, we need to find some new products to put on the store, because the more products we have, the more money we're going to make." I said, "We're not going to do that. What we're actually going to do is we're going to uh, email our list, and we're going to ask them specific question around like what are their biggest problems, like." Because he bought a business and they're selling rugs online, right? Like team rugs. And we worked out, I said to him, like, what are the problems that people are having once they've bought the rugs? What's the problem they have with that product? Or how can we make that product even better? And after questioning the audience and his list, he found out that sometimes when the dog runs across the rug on the tiles, or a human runs across the rug, it slips a little bit. I thought, oh great, how do we prevent that from happening? Do we spray some sticky thing underneath the rug so it sticks, or do we get the rugs made with like a rubber underneath a grid or something like
Hmm.
that? And what he actually found was some non-stick pads that go on each corner of the rug.
Yep.
And what we did is every time somebody bought a rug or added that rug to cart, we added those non-stick pads, and say they were like, $100. We added those non-stick pads and said, would you like these non-stick pads? They're 60% off. Get them for $40. The conversion rate on that was like huge. It's massive. It was like something like between 50 to 80%. Most people bought them. And that's how you make more money in your business without finding a new product, but solving a problem that people didn't believe they had or didn't know they had. And you preempted it for them because you did the data and the research yourself. And the conversion rate on that is huge. And so we didn't need to find a lot of new products and reinvent the wheel. We just help people better. And that's when you help people better, then you make more money. It's very simple.
Yeah. Great. I think that's a great answer. LT Traveler's got a question. What is Jared's opinion of all these Amazon FBA and other types of people promising to set up for you and split the profits? Done for you online business.
I love it. The key word that I picked up there is promise, right? So I don't know anybody that I trust with my life that says to me, I'll promise you this. They don't need to promise me because I already trust them. Right? So when somebody you don't know is trying to prove their trustworthiness in one sentence or one quick way through tricky marketing, then you've got to read between the lines, right? Like, how can you, like, I don't ever say to people, I promise if you buy a business, you'll get X result, because who knows, right?
Yeah.
And these people that set these up, anyway, my biggest thing with this is that a lot of people are looking for a done for you method for people that can set up businesses and they know how to do it, right? The fact is, still, even the best online business starters fail. In fact, I know people that still start many businesses and they start them to sell the businesses, and they do it themselves, and they still have an 80% failure rate, and they've been doing it for years and years, decades, right? Any online business, the startup failure rate is huge. Like, I'm talking 90 to 80%, even if you got experience. And a lot of people, what they do is they might join my program and then they go, oh, it's taking too long to find the right business for me. So they leave and they go and chase the shiny object of like, oh, this person can start a drop shipping store for me, or this person can start an FBA business for me. All you need to do is pay $15,000, $20,000 to set up, and then you got it. Great. That's cool. But when you've built the product, you can do that yourself, by the way. You can find a product, you can find a drop shipper, build a website, list it on Amazon. The reality is, how you make money in ecom these days and any business is you need to do marketing. And that's
Yeah.
the hardest part of making any sales, is doing the marketing. And that's what these people don't do well, or don't know how to do. They just set up a turnkey business. Yeah, it could work only if you know how to do the marketing. So a lot of people do this. They leave my program and then they come back
Yeah.
and it's like, Jared, damn, I need to buy a business. Like, I just got ripped off for 15, 20 grand, or they've done it before they even found me. And it's a shame because a lot of people get taken advantage of by tricky marketing tactics that people promise them they're going to get an ROI.
Do you watch the Spencer Cornelia YouTube channel?
No.
So in the last couple of weeks, he's had a couple of videos come out where back in 2020, when all the issues with the pandemic hit, this Amazon automation or online business automation went huge because e-commerce exploded in that time.
Mm,
And a bunch of people did, as you said, they signed up, they spent 20, 30, $50,000, have these online stores set up, and the results weren't there. And now what's happening is now it's trickling through to the courts, because now there's
right.
lawsuits being filed by people who are upset and want their money back and stuff. And some companies, are basically, ended up folding because they have
Getting sued.
They're being sued and all this kind of stuff. And so for someone who's interested in this, after we're done, I'll go look a couple of those videos up and I'll put them in the comments down below, because there were two in particular that I remember seeing specifically about this.
My thing, yeah, that's awesome, David. Like, we need to share this, and this is why I got into teaching people to buy a business. I don't need to make promises that people will make money after they buy a business. Why? Because the proof is in the pudding. You can look at the business, you do the due diligence on it, and you already know it's going to make money. But there's these
Yeah.
people that are like, they know that 80 to 90% of people are going to fail at this, and they still create a product and they sell it to them. That is a straight up charlatan. There's no doubt about it, right? So we need people to understand that you don't need, if you want to start a business, I think the only reason you should start any business is if you've got a product or service that doesn't yet exist in the marketplace that you're so damn passionate about that you want to do it for the good of humanity and you're prepared to stay in that business for 10 years plus. If your goal is to make money, don't start a business. Speak to David and buy one. Because there's already proof that it's working and making money.
Well, and I liken it to inventing a whole new kind of business. Like, I'll sometimes talk to people who have this incredible new idea for something that's never existed before. And I'll say to them, like, if you start this business, not only will you have the problem of finding customers and everything, you will then have to educate the market as to why your thing is useful and why they need it.
Mm.
Whereas if, a city is growing and new neighborhoods are added, maybe they need a new shoe store. Well, all you have to do is call it a shoe store. Everyone's going to know what it is. Everyone's going to know what you do. And if they need shoes, they're going to go in there, right?
Yeah.
So I agree that there's a case for starting new businesses. If there's a new market that develops that's underserved, I mean, there's all kinds of cases where people successfully start businesses. But to your point, the vast majority of new businesses don't succeed, which is why it makes sense to buy. Yeah.
So the mindset there's many layers deeper than what when you're talking about this. I think that people should understand a few layers deeper of, like, if there's a new neighborhood started and they need there's no shoe store, there's a need there, right? So people that are successful that start businesses, they're looking for a need that has not
Mhm.
yet been met. Most people that want to start a business is because they want to make money online. So they're trying to think of a unique, creative idea to make money online, but they're not thinking about, how do I find people that are struggling with this, that are ready to open up their wallet and give me their money. That's how you start it. That's, if you were to start a business, you need to look for the need first.
And how do you find those people?
Yeah.
How do you talk to them, right? Got
Yeah.
another question here from Jaw 1118. How do
Mm.
you find sellers of these online businesses?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joe. So if you go to Google and type in website brokers or online business brokers, you'll see a bunch of online business brokers. You got Empire Flippers, Quiet Light Brokerage, Flipper, FLIPPA.com, motioninvest.com, investors.club. We actually get a lot of people come to us wanting to sell their businesses. We are doing outreach and deal flow. If people want to sell one of their online businesses to us or to our community, let us know. There's so many places you can find them for sale. Just type in website brokers or online business brokers in Google. And yeah, the cool thing about it is you just go on, then you can see how much the business is worth, how much it's making per month, work required in terms of time and hours. And yeah, you can sort of make your decision. Well, obviously do due diligence, but yeah.
Now, with a lot of the clients that I work with who are looking to buy a business, they will decide, they'll look at the broker channel, they'll look at the online marketplaces, but then sometimes they'll say, I really want that shoe store and it's got to be in this region and I can't find one on a website. So I'm going to go do a proprietary search. They're going to start contacting owners of these different, because once you know what kind of business you want, you just need the yellow pages, right? You can find them.
Yeah.
And so is there that same kind of proprietary off-market search that exists in the world of online businesses? And is it easier because everything's online, or is it more difficult to cut through the noise and actually have a meaningful conversation with someone?
It's I don't know what it's like in the offline. I guess it's probably easier offline than it is online. Yes, and I teach people how to do their own searches and find, the businesses that you actually want to buy, based on the niche, or the product or the service or whatever it is. But also when you reach out to people via email saying, "Hey, I've got money, I want to buy your business," it sometimes rings alarm bells to people, and they're like,
Sure.
"I'm not
Yeah.
interested." Right? I'm not, and if you own an online business, you're getting pitched every day. Like, we get pitched for so many things every single day. Oh, I can do your YouTube stuff, SEO. Do you need blogs? Do you need links? Do you need
Yep.
this? Like, whatever. And they're just trying to sell stuff to you. And then you get somebody who's like, "I want to buy your business." You just don't know to believe whether it's true or trustworthy or not. So, there's a lot of skepticism there. But if you work out how to build relationships and you know how to do that well, online, then you can win at it. You can do it. It's just a bit of work, right? You really got to roll up your sleeves and find those businesses.
So one of the ways that people will find a business they might potentially be able to buy is they'll go to like an association event or like a trade show, and they'll
Oh,
actually
cool.
meet people and talk to people. And
Yeah.
so you're talking about this same kind of thing, but with respect to online businesses. So there's communities, groups, et cetera, of these owners that you could become a member of and potentially make some real human connections that could lead to some of these deals.
Yeah, there are Facebook groups, you can join. There are Flipper meetups, flipper.com. I've been to a couple of one Flipper meetup. But most of what I'm talking about is like finding the businesses by doing your own research on Google and through other tools to see if they meet your KPIs and the business that you want to buy, and then doing outreach via email.
Hmm.
And it's really a numbers game.
Okay. Great question, Joe.
Mm.
We're kind of getting close to the top of the hour here. Anything else we should be talking about before it's time for you to go?
Due diligence. Like, it's easy to
Yeah,
say,
let's
we're going
talk
to
about
buy a
that.
business, but you need to do due diligence.
In fact, I heard that in the world of online businesses, it may be very common for people to create some erroneous data to try to make their businesses look better. You run into that quite often?
Yeah. I think it might have been a year ago. Somebody reach out to me. It might have been longer. Reach out to me and say, "Jared, I bought a business and I got taken advantage of. And I want to come on your website. I mean, I want to come on your podcast to talk about it." And I thought, I don't know, like, if they bought it from a broker that I know, I don't want to expose them and have, of course, this big clash. But yeah, it did happen. We had him come on the podcast. He bought an e-commerce business, and the people that were selling the business used a bunch of different credit cards to buy their own product and increase their revenue. And they were anonymous sales. And I said to him, "Okay, how did you find this business, and who helped you with the due diligence and all that sort of stuff?" He said, "I found it in this marketplace, or this broker, and I didn't have anybody help me with due diligence." And I was like, "Dude, like, and I think he spent like mid six figures." And I was like, "Mate, like, you should pay somebody to help you do due diligence, or at least have a friend look at it at the very least." Um, anyway, yeah, he got taken advantage of. So we shared that story. There's definitely a lot of ways that people can butcher numbers. But the cool thing about being online is there's a lot of ways that you can prove that they butchered them, or you can get real facts and real data once you get access to their database or their back end. Or yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways that you can prove that the financials of a business in the online space. So yeah, due diligence is the most important thing. It's nice and it sounds great. I'm just going to buy a business, but you should, like, it's like, imagine buying a property without doing a building and pest check and getting a bunch of things checked before you bought it. And then you bought this thing that's rotting out because it's got termites because you didn't get a building and pest check. It's the same thing. You just be crazy not to get help.
Yeah. Yeah. Great words of advice. And it reminds me of this recent big Wall Street fraud that just happened, where did you hear about this? The company that
No.
helped students apply for online student assistance, they claim to have millions of of clients, but it turns out they only had about 300,000, and they were bought by a major bank, and they fabricated an extra couple million of client records. And it was
Wow.
only after the transaction that it was discovered. And yeah, I forget the name. It was in the headlines there a few weeks ago. Um, what about turning an offline business into an online business? I mean, I personally think that the world of online and offline business is a bit of a misnomer. It's all just businesses, and
Yeah.
I think that today, if you own a brick and mortar real world business, you better have some kind of presence online because, you know, more and more, this is just the way that all businesses marketed and advertised, etc. And
Mm.
so, what about the opportunity here that M is asking about finding that offline business and then injecting it with an online strategy?
Look, I think you're crazy not to, right? Like you said it perfectly, David. Like they're inherently together. They're a mix now. Um, I help people scale businesses. That's one thing that I do once I've either bought them. But we have had people come and said, "Hey, Jaryd, can you just scale my business or help me grow my business?" And um, one way that you can do it is, so I'm helping somebody in an Eastern European country selling a e-commerce product, and we're growing his business. And one way that you can do it is you can take the email list of customers that you already got, and you can plug that into Facebook, or you can build a website, build traffic to it, do your marketing. It's just a form of marketing. And then you can take your already list that you have of people that have bought from you, and you can upload that into Facebook and Google or wherever you want, Twitter, and you can do some remarketing to them, to, only the people that have already bought from you. And you lean into that, and it's better. That's a warm list versus the cold audience. A warm audience, somebody that's already bought from you, they've got proof in the pudding that they've already paid money to purchase your product. They're likely going to do it again. They're the best type of people to do marketing to. But that's a good low hanging fruit to start, in the taking your offline business online. And there's so many strategies and ways you can do it. But I think you'd be crazy not to. Like, you're opening up yourself up from a local market to the world.
Yeah. And it's easier today to do this than at any time in history. I mean, with some of the tools that are available, you don't need to know how to code or anything like that. So many people I know have gone and created, like Shopify sites and things like this to
Mm,
get products up online. So
mm.
it's definitely something that every brick and mortar business should be addressing in some way.
You're gonna get it's I think you're gonna get left behind if you don't,
Yeah,
right? Like,
I would
even
agree.
like, you look at all of the stores if you go to your local shopping center, your big shopping center with all the retail stores, I dare say every single one of those in-store businesses has an online business arm that probably does more volume online. Like, like all of them would have an online arm.
Well, you know what I'm seeing lately, I was actually shoe shopping with my daughter a couple of weeks ago. We went to the store and she found a pair of sneakers that she liked and she wanted to try them on, but they didn't have her size. And the clerk said, if you really like these, I can have them delivered to your house in your size later this week.
Yeah.
Like the retail store is fully integrated with their online store,
Yeah.
and they're bouncing, like they're literally leveraging both places to do the same overall traffic. I was really impressed with that.
I think you so crazy not to. Like, what's your option if somebody comes in and you don't have the product that they want in store, and you don't have an online or a warehouse somewhere and doing online sales? You turn away somebody that's like, I'm going to buy a pair of shoes for $100. If you don't have them, I'm going to go somewhere else. You're basically giving money to your competitors. So you kind of have to. You're doing a disservice to people by not doing that. Is a really good reframe to
Yeah.
think about. Like, you're sending them away of like, oh, I've got to spend another hour looking for these shoes. Like, solve the problem, make their life better, help them out, please. That's what we hear. That's what we should do in businesses.
That's what a business is for. It provides for you by solving other people's problems.
Yeah.
Um, your thoughts on franchise business promises? Listen, Jared, are there any franchise online businesses?
I don't think it's a thing, because how do you franchise the whole, like, how do you
I've
I,
seen this is what I've seen over the last couple of decades. There have been a couple of franchises I've run across where it's like creating like a local business marketing solution using online tools, but it was like that was like a franchised business thing that someone was buying into.
mm,
But you're right. I guess if you were a big e-commerce website, you could parcel out countries and make them franchises, but why would you if you could just set up your own
yeah, it's
individual
like,
country branch if you wanted to?
yeah, it's thinking about branding, and it's like splitting up a brand. I just don't think it's a that I've never seen it. I've never come across it. So, and I
Yeah.
don't know
And
much about
and
franchising either, to be honest.
and if we've missed it and you guys can think of something, just put it in the comments down below because I'd love to learn
Mm,
about it and please put their website because I'd like to go look at it because that would
yeah.
be interesting. So if people are curious to learn more about this and the stuff that you do, where's the best place that people should be joining you?
Buyingonlinebusinesses.com. And yeah, we got all the things. We got the same thing as you, man. Podcast, YouTube channel, all the stuff. Yeah, people can see if they like our flavor, and yeah, come and ask questions if you got more.
That's awesome. And I have linked it down below in the show notes. So
Thank
if you're driving your car listening to this, or if you're go down in the notes, you'll find a link to Jared's podcast and to his prior appearances. And as soon as we're done, I'm going to go amend the notes to include the reference to the Spencer Cornelia video and a video about that big fraud. I wish I could remember the name of the company, but
Yeah,
it was in the news just last week, and it's an incredible story, really. But
it's a shame.
thank you very much for being on. I'm going to play a couple of sponsorship messages and exit loops here.
Cool.
Hang on tight, and thank you very much for joining us once again.
Thanks so much, David. Thanks for everybody for the questions as well. And yeah, having a conversation just around business. I absolutely love it. So appreciate your
All right,
platform.
awesome. I'll be right back. Special thanks go to today's video sponsor, Mark Willis of Lake Growth Financial. Mark helps people better manage their personal wealth and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and have gotten lots of positive feedback from people I've worked with over the years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find a playlist of all the interviews I've done with Mark and to learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up to arrange a conversation about what this solution might look like for you. So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Head over to my blog site at davidcbarnett.com. You'll find hundreds of articles and videos, all for free. You'll find links to my books and online courses, and you can sign up for my email list and get emails covering topics that interest you and be notified of new videos. This episode of Small Business and Deal Making is brought to you by SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focus on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit www.smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more great shows and easily subscribe to be notified of new episodes. It's a great way to discover quality content. And if you've discovered us today via the network, then I hope you're enjoying the show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss any one of our great episodes.